Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
Boom, boom, boom. We are back with another episode of Find Your Freedom. And today's episode is going to be really, really, really cool. But before we get into today's episode, we all know that you are going to need some money to go buy a rental property or your own personal home or a short-term rental or a mid-term rental. And the best place to go, Omid used them, I use them, is Wealth Builders Mortgage Group, powered by Movement. All right. It's Parker and her team. They are excellent. Believe me, they will take care of you. So once again, Wealth Builders Group Mortgage, make sure you go to them for all your mortgage needs, regardless if it's a investment property, short-term rental, long-term rental, or your personal home, or even a mid-term rental. Now, so today our guest is back by popular demand, right? We had to have him back, right? He was on our platform before, you know, and he's grown a lot, and that's what we love about the space. So obviously, he's a short-term rental investor. He has properties across 4 different states. Well, the last time we checked anyway, so we're going to check in and see if that has grown, right? He also have a thriving, growing management company, which we're really going to dive into today. And you really want to make sure you tune in because you want to learn a lot about that. All right. He's also passionate for helping others create financial independence, through strategies of scaling Airbnb management companies. So if we could, let's welcome Austin. What's up, man?
Lenny, Omid, it's great to see your beautiful faces here and to be back on the pod. It's been too long.
It's
way
been
too long.
Way too long. But hey, real quick, what is the name of your management company, man?
Yeah, so it's the Lux Co-Host is the name of the management company.
Co-Host. Listen to that. I love that. Lux Co-Host. That just got gold all over it, dude. So tell us, man, what have you been doing since we talked last?
Dude, it's probably been like a year and a half, almost 2 years since we spoke. It's been some time.
Yeah.
And just really been focusing on growing the management business, building a personal brand, and just really putting myself out there, which is like the majority of things. I remember when we were first speaking, I think I was just starting the management company.
Yep.
So I was really trying to figure it out. During that time, I was, just trying to go on Facebook groups, find clients that way. And I was reaching out to real estate agents too, trying to foster those relationships. And the relationships turned out to be pretty fruitful after time. It does take time to ramp up for sure. It takes a decent amount of time. But the Facebook groups really weren't working out for me, man. But I found another strategy that I want to share with the audience today as well as we get into it.
But before that, tell us about this Facebook group. Like, what was you going to Facebook groups doing? Like, why did you even go to the Facebook groups, dude, to build your company?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so many different short-term rental Facebook groups, and people will pretty much just post forums on there and just look for advice and guidance when they're first getting into short-term rentals. And there's always some people that are just looking for help, right? That need a co-host, and they'll find those Facebook groups and they'll go on there and be like, "Hey, look, I'm looking for a co-host. Can anybody help me?" And then pretty much what happens is, like, as I'm sure you and Omid both know, like 30 people will reply to that one person. So it's kind of just like an abundance of like managers, small boutique managers that are trying to get a few clients themselves. And what is good for the person who posted that, they have 30 people to like search from, and they'll probably interview 3 or 5 people, and then they pick one. And it just really wasn't a great strategy for me in the beginning when I was starting my company.
You know what? I've experienced some of those same kind of challenges, and I love to kind of dig a little bit deeper into that, because I think, to your point, local relationships seem to work really well. So, like, what inspired you to kind of like take that shift, and like, how did you implement that? Like, what did you decide to do? Because I think that's really thinking outside the box, and most like beginner investors, or even like kind of semi-experienced investors, they kind of follow the crowd. So like, I guess like what inspired you, or what kind of led you into kind of like the direction that you decided to go?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a great question. And I think it really all goes to having like an aha moment, right? When I was working my W-2 job in Chicago, I was working in wealth management. And I realized really quickly that I absolutely hated working my W-2 job just because I didn't want somebody to have control of my time and tell me what I had to do or what I couldn't do. And like I was willing to put forth the hours. The hours weren't the challenge. It was just like I didn't want somebody telling me how I could or couldn't live my life. And um, one day I was walking from the subway to the Loop to my office, and I kind of just stopped and looked around and saw all these different people doing the same thing as me. There was people my age, people in their 40s, 50s, and we were all just commuting to work and in realities in the rat race, to say the least. And it was kind of my aha moment there. And I realized that I wanted something different, right? And then that's when I dug into real estate, started listening to Bigger Pockets, going to meetups, things like that. And with the co-hosting, I had a similar aha moment. So I was just really trying to do these Facebook groups. I was going like door knocking on these real estate agents' doors and just be like, hey, look, I manage Airbnbs in the area. I'm happy to connect with you. I can run an analysis for any potential buyers that are looking for a short-term rental. Like, happy to help in any way I could. So I'm literally printing off these pamphlets and driving to all these different real estate agents just to meet them and try to get like business from them. And it just took a lot of time. And then one day I was just like, there has to be a better way to do this. And then I really just sat back and I realized, hey, look, how did these like larger property managers like grow? Like there's Vacasa, Evolve, like they have thousands and thousands of listings.
Yes, they do.
And what I came to the conclusion of is that Vacasa spent $7.5 million on direct mail postcards last year alone, right? And so they're really good at marketing and they're really good at sales. So what happens though is when they spent all this money, they got all these clients, but they didn't have their operations in place to provide the quality service that they promised to these people. So it kind of just made me think, well, if I can be able to target these people with these larger property managers that are currently in pain, it should be a pretty easy way to sell them on converting over to my management company. So that's the path that I ended up going. And when I realized that and I figured out how to get a hold of these people, how to pull the data and how to open the conversation, my business pretty much exploded from there. So just to give you an idea, like, so I have a data engineer that will pull like all the addresses on the back end of these websites for any single property manager, or it could be on Airbnb. It doesn't matter where it's at. And I do a 2-call close. So what it looks like is I give them a call and just say, hey, look, Omid, I saw that you're currently being managed by Vacasa. I think you own 123 Lane Street. Is that correct? And they're just like, yes, that's correct. Like pretty much like, why are you calling me? Oh, well, I'm calling you because I actually run this boutique Airbnb management company, and I've had a few people from Vacasa actually reach out to me and let me know that their revenue and their occupancy has currently been down, and some of them haven't had a booking in 30 days. I'm just wondering if you're kind of seeing the same thing, right? So then that opens the door for the conversation to go, I am seeing the same thing, or no, I'm not seeing the same thing. And if it's no, then I have a few other questions to go about. Like, I just asked them like, all right, well, do you know that like you had a 2-star review and that negatively impacts you in the algorithm, and now you're showing up on page 6 or page 7, people having to scroll 6 pages. And just having those conversations, like I have like a 10-minute conversation with them first. And then I say, hey, look, I'm sorry you're in this situation. If it would be helpful, I'm happy to set up like a quick 15, 20-minute call to go through a few optimization strategies that you could implement to increase your revenue. Would that be helpful? Right? So I'm not really asking them or anything on that call. I'm just gathering data, providing value. And then on that second call, when I go through the optimization strategies, that's when I say, hey, look, you could potentially do this yourself. You go back and show Vacasa what they should be doing, or I could do it for you for the same fee that you're currently paying.
Going for the kill. I love it. All right. So, what I'm hearing here is, you sat back and you said, what are these larger companies, or what have they been doing to grow? And one of the things you identified was their operations wasn't I guess at the same level as their sales team, right? So I guess when you thought about that and you start thinking about, your company, are you like in partnership with anyone here, or is all you kind of doing the operations and the sales? Like what does your makeup look like?
Yeah, so my role is completely acquisitions, acquiring new clients, looking for new
Okay.
clients, and then I have a business partner that'll run the operations side of things because I didn't want the same thing to happen that was happening with Vacasa. Like I didn't want to have to be looking for all these clients, get really good at sales, and then my operations not be dialed in, and they're in the same situation. Because the whole point that I started the business is I want to be able to help people. People are in pain. They need a new manager. They need a boutique manager that's actually going to treat their property like it's their own. And then the other thing is like these people that work for these larger companies, like they're making probably $15, $20 an hour. They don't own a short-term rental themselves. They don't really understand how the business works. Right.
Mm.
So just want to make sure we kept that in mind the whole time.
So, kind of going along the lines of like, just to say hypothetically, we have somebody that was in your position prior. So they're kind of at a crossroads. They have some experience. They have a lot of insight. They did all the work. Now they have all this knowledge, but it's not necessarily being applied to its full potential. So they want to build a co-host business.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I get started? So should I just be the operations, sales, everything, or do I go and find somebody who loves the operations and somebody who's who looks like you, smooth, like got the white shirt from, looks like you're from Florida, so what's your recommendations for like just somebody kind of maybe in the position that you were before you kind of transitioned?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is for me personally is like I always like to have like a game plan, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect because some people will write a game plan for like months on a time and then just never take action, right? So when I want to calculate my game plan with whatever business I'm going into, I always just ask myself, all right, well, what am I looking to get out of this, and how much income do I really want to be making for this company, and what does that time frame look like? Right. So like maybe it's just you just want to be at $5,000 a month in income with co-hosting business and you're happy, right? If you're just doing that, you don't really need an operations manager. You can just do it yourself. But like I'm not telling you to go out and acquire all these clients in the very beginning. Like you can space it out, right? You could just do one client a month. If you just did one client a month and that property was bringing in $60,000 a year in income, you're charging 20%, $12,000 for the year or $1,000 per month. After 5 months, you'd be doing $5,000 in recurring revenue every single month. And at that case, like the onboarding is what takes the longest period of time. You wouldn't get burnt out because onboarding takes a lot of time. That's when you probably want an operations manager or operations partner. But that's pretty much how I would start. I would start there, figure that out first. And then I would just focus on acquiring one client every single month. It's only one client a month. Anybody can do that. One client a month.
Anybody can do that.
And then after that, just onboard one property a month. And then after 5 months, you're at 5K. And then if you then want to scale from there, you either bring on a partner or you bring on like an operations manager or VA.
Gotcha. So let's talk about, before we jump back into the business, let's talk about partnerships for a little bit. Obviously, you have one, and it's been going on for a few years now. So I guess give us some pros and cons about partnership and why it's important to have a partner, because there's a lot of individuals out there who the first thing we always think is, I got to do it myself, right?
Yeah.
There's no one out here to help me. I have to go find the money. I have to go find the clients. I have to manage it myself. So, how important it is to have a partner.
Yeah. So like my issue was in the beginning when I first started with the short-term rental space or any businesses, my reason for having a partner was wrong. And it took me a long time to figure that out. Is I really just wanted somebody to like be in the trenches with me so that like I wasn't dealing with all the pain myself. I had somebody to like talk to, be like, oh, this sucks, and like pretty much just complain. And in reality, really, you don't really need a partner in the very beginning. You don't. You just need to do the work, put in the time, and then just deal with the stress yourself. But if you are at the point now and you do need a partner, you just need to find somebody that's good at what you're not good at. That's the biggest thing. Find somebody that's good at what you're not good at. You're crystal clear. If you're not good at sales, find somebody that's good at sales. If you're not good at operations, find somebody that's good at operations.
Makes
No, I
so
like
much
that. No, I started a co-host business. I have a partner. I have two partners. One that does the operations, one that does kind of like the tech stuff. Both areas that I want to kind of have somebody else doing, and I want to learn more on the sales component side and like acquisition. And you seem like you're the expert on that, so I kind of want to like transition into that a little bit. I know like securing leads and there's like, different forms of doing that. And you see in the forums and they talk about, okay, well, find the low performing properties and then based on that, you can kind of identify some, like a potential lead, but identifying the address, like what does that process look like? And you said you have like an engineer that does that. But what does that look like? Let's say like, I'm in California. I would, likely target stuff in California. So, walk me through like some basic steps.
Yeah, of course. So the first thing that I do is like I'll go to these different websites of these different property management companies, and then I'll put in certain filters, right? Like I'll put in a filter like, okay, what properties are going to perform the best? Which one are going to make the most money for this actual market? So, for example, like down here in South Florida, it's going to be 4-bedroom houses, 15 minutes from the beach with a pool. So I'll put in those filters in there. And then once I have that filter, I'll then copy that URL, send it over to the engineer. Once the engineer is then able to pull that information for me, I'll then pretty much skip trace that information. And then from there, this is like very important that a lot of people don't think about is like you want to treat your business as an actual business. So once I have that data back, I want to input it into a CRM software. There's multiple different CRM softwares out there like Salesforce, HubSpot, like Go High Level, and put everything in there and then keep track of all your like data, right, from that one spot, because we don't want to lose leads by just writing them down on like a notepad and then forgetting to call them or like not following up.
Yep.
That's huge. Yeah.
That's super important. I think that's the stage I'm like, I need to get a CRM. Like I'm the old school ghetto. Like, okay, I have an email here. I have it like, it's just not organized.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah.
And a big thing is like, I was on a coaching call earlier today at 12 o'clock. And one of my students was just like, yeah, I got this lady who was interested. Her sons are managing it right now. She just wants to talk to them first. And then she's going to call me back later. And I just said, okay, like, well, good job. You got somebody that's interested, but you didn't set up the follow-up call, right? So it's kind of just off in like no man's land at this point. So what happens is when you follow up with her, you're putting her at the point of being in the authoritative situation now. Like you're kind of like a kid reaching out to like their parent and asking like, hey, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? Before you end that call, you always want to set up the follow-up call no matter what. And what I always say to a prospect is, hey, look, absolutely no worries. Like completely understand you have to talk to so-and-so. I don't want you to like have to play follow up with me and like vice versa. Why don't we just put something on the calendar? And then if something pops up on that time or that day, we can just move it then, because we just don't want to like let them be in control and constantly following up with them at that point in time.
Dude, it's so crazy. Hey, real quick. So for your company, I guess, if you don't mind sharing, I guess how many, properties you guys have so far up under the belt?
Yeah. So 37 under management, and it's from Vero Beach down to Fort Lauderdale.
Oh man.
So like, I was living in West Palm Beach. So Vero Beach is about like an hour north of West Palm Beach, and then Fort Lauderdale is about an hour south. So it's just everything's close by, and it makes scaling a lot easier. Because my own investment properties that I have too are in West Palm Beach and Fort Lauderdale. So I already have the team in place. So I just wanted to do it that way.
Cool. Now you mentioned the CRM, right? And it's very important because it's funny that you say that. I just followed up with some people that did not get back to me, and I got some meetings and some leads that I really desperately was looking, because some people get your emails and they just overlook them and forget to get back. But for those who's listening, because they're gonna see, man, Austin, he got it together. He's 37 plus properties. All right, now what in the world is a CRM? So
Yeah.
can you just give just a little more insight on what it is, and I guess again in a certain manner, how are you using it for your benefit?
Yeah, so CRM is pretty much where you're going to keep track of all your lead data. So, for example, like say Omid, Omid is like a potential prospect of mine. So I have Omid's phone number, I have his email address, I have his property address, I have his mailing address. Everything is going to be tracked underneath Omid's lead in the CRM, right? And then from that CRM, I can call Omid directly from that CRM. And then whenever that call hangs up, I can type in notes. So Omid says that he's not making as much money as he was the past 2 years. He's been contemplating switching management companies for the past 2 months. Maybe Omid is married and he wants to talk to his wife about this. Omid says, hey, he wants to talk on Tuesday at 3:00. Like I track everything in that CRM in that moment in time. And I can also track like whenever I need to follow up with Omid in that CRM too. So pretty much the CRM is just like the lifeline of your business so that you know what exactly is happening in your business, what is going on. And then also you can send emails from the CRM. You can do text messages in the CRM. You can literally do everything from a sales standpoint in there.
I love the idea of the CRM. I think that's like a great tool, and that's like maybe the next stage for me when I got to get into that. I guess
yeah, just because like imagine you have like 1,000 leads, right? You call 1,000 leads.
Yes.
You need somewhere to keep track of them. Make sure you're like not calling the same people over and over again. So it just helps you out in that way.
And just for the folks, it's called the customer relation management. So CRM, so everyone knows. But go ahead, Omid.
Yeah. So kind of following up with the questions. I know in like the acquisitions like side of things, sometimes you're gonna come across some owners, and maybe when you first start, you're not in a stage where you can kind of pick and choose, like filter out the ones you don't want, and you're kind of like just trying to acquire some clients. At what point do you kind of like set kind of like I guess like specific guidelines within your own group to say like, hey, this is the type of customer we would not take on, even like let's say them negotiating the management fee. So what's your thoughts on that, and what's your experience with that?
Yeah. Okay. So there's some really good things to pinpoint there. So the first thing is you want to build your branding out based around like which type of properties you want to target that are bringing the most income for your area, right? And to give you an idea, like I've landed a couple clients that like do $250,000. There's a few out there, but they're very hard to find. But if you take a step down, like the 4-bedroom pool houses around 100, 120,000 is like where I want to be, and there's a lot of supply with those. So I want to build my complete branding around that with my website, like who I am. I only focus on these properties, and I only want to target those types of properties in the very beginning, right? Whenever you're starting out and you don't have any clients, it's okay to like bring on a few that don't like match that criteria. That's completely okay. But like after you get to about like, I don't know, I'd say about 5, that's when you want to start being more particular about which clients you bring on. Especially if like once you hit that threshold, it's all about like what your time is worth, right? So for example, if you were just doing properties that were doing $30,000 in revenue a year, then you're making $500 per month. Is it worth your time to manage a property for $500 a month? That's when I would make that decision. But the biggest thing for me is just like less the income, more the actual owners themselves. Like how needy are these owners? Because the owners is the hardest part of starting this management business. It's not like the actual guests, it's the owners themselves, because it's their baby and they want to make sure they're making money at the end of the day. So you got to put certain systems in place as well to make sure like the owners aren't constantly reaching out to you. So what I tell the owners is like, hey, look, if you have an issue, like just email me, I'll get back to you in 24 hours. If it's an emergency, you can text me, but like I have so many different clients and I want to make sure I can provide the best service to your actual property, email is the best way to make sure everything gets solved, so I don't miss something in my text messages. And the second thing I want to mention about like the revenue, like the percentage wise, is like my base rate is 20%, right? So I have owners that will come to me and be like, hey, look, John down the street is going to do 10% or 15%, whatever it is. Hey, look, that's great. Like John's probably just starting out or whatever. Maybe I'm just starting out too, but like I actually invest in short-term rentals myself. I like you. What I'm willing to do for you is I'll drop my rate down to 15% for the first 90 days. After those 90 days, if you're happy with the service I'm providing, I'll then just bring it back to the normal rate of 20%. Would that help you? That'd be helpful. And then you're not stuck at 15%, 10% for the whole year.
Yeah, that's really
So,
good.
No, I like that idea. I like that response.
So no HMOs, right? You know the
No
HMOs,
HMOs, man. No HMOs. Everybody loves that.
What is HMO again?
Let them know, man. Let the listeners know what a HMO is.
Yeah, man. An HMO is a high maintenance owner.
No, we say no to those, right?
Yeah,
now, why
no
is that, man?
HMOs.
Listen, the high maintenance owners, they probably have like all the money, right? They probably have all the properties, so why no HMOs?
It's going to take up 80% of your time, right? And you gotta really be calculating your time. Like, how many hours is this one owner like calling me throughout the week? Is it 5 hours and the property's making me $1,000 per month? I mean, and then I'm still managing their property. Like it's a lot, it could be another job at the end of the day.
I had a HMO. So this was, we had the client for like 3 months, and literally after a month, like she would text us multiple times a day, tell us why we're not responding fast enough to the customers. And I had to essentially fire her. I was just like, hey, like, I don't think this is a great fit. I think your expectations of what we're going to provide you is not maybe you'll find somebody that can, and ended the relationship because it was not worth their time. It was like, we're making like, I don't know, 700, 800 a month. It was not worth our time.
But yeah. How do you identify them? Like, all right, great. We don't want no HMOs, right? That's easy to say, but are there any filtering processes? Are there any signs you should look out for, that, you could pick up on, so you don't bring them on board. You tell them no before you tell them yes. So can you share any of those?
Yeah. So I'll talk about looking out for HMOs, and then I'll also talk about like how we maintain HMOs, the situation that you had, Omid. So it's really based on their personality, right? Like, what kind of personality does that person have? Like, are they like a very attention to detail person? Usually those people are going to be HMOs. And I'll give you an example. So before I launched this property in West Palm Beach, I went over there with the owner and the photographer. And there was a neighbor across the street that was like moving the trash cans that the owner had put across the street because we were doing photos. And she got like upset, which was like completely fine, because we're taking photos. But she like ran out there and started screaming at the neighbor, and like it was like this big like fuss going on. And I kind of just like overlooked that situation in the back of my head at that time, because her property was like very, very nicely designed, like one of the best properties I've ever seen.
Wow.
And it was just like, it got to the point where like there was like, it was slow season in West Palm Beach, which is like August, September, October. We're in slow season right now. And we were having contractors staying at her house, and the contractors were smoking on their front porch, and she has access to their Ring camera. And she was just like, can they not like smoke on my front porch? Can they smoke down the road? So like we told them, hey, look, can you please not smoke on the front porch? And then they went in the front of the house, and she's like, can you just ask them to walk down the road? And I'm just like, dude, like I should have seen that sign in the very beginning from her personality. She's a very attention to detail person as well, and I just overlooked it. But how do we maintain, like, when we onboard an HMO to like they're not like taking up too much of our time? The email one is the first one. The second thing is like you never want them to be a co-host, because like Omid was saying, she's like looking at like the time that you're responding to these guests, and obviously we should respond in like a reasonable time frame, but if they're like checking the messages constantly and they're seeing like different things that pop up, they're just going to ask you more questions. It's better if they're just oblivious. They want full service management, so they just need to let us do what we're doing or what we do best.
So what do you have? You have like a once a month meeting with these individuals every quarter? You just update them on what's going on? Like what's
usually once a quarter, or like if they need to like book some time, like I'll give them a Calendly link, but like I'll mark it out like 5 days in advance so they can't book a call like unless it's 5 days out. Pretty much what that does is like if it's like a small problem, they'll pretty much figure it out themselves, or they'll send me an email too.
Okay.
No, I like that. I think the challenge that I have is like, when do you say no? And I think like you're setting clear parameters around clients, so that way it's like respecting your time. So I think that's great.
100%. So like they can't call like these larger property managers and text these large property managers either. Like it's just because we're smaller doesn't mean they can treat us like this.
So you got to set that precedence up front.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to have that call with them on your onboarding call. Hey, look, this is how it's going to go. The issue that people always have is just not setting the correct expectations with the owners from like the first conversation, because then they think they can just pretty much do whatever they want, and you're just going to be at their beck and call.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think of like, okay, so you're overcoming objections. Okay, so we got the property, we got it set up, we're managing the owner. At that point, is how do you decide how many properties, or like how much you want to continue to grow the business, and like at what point do you decide you need more like infrastructure to kind of help out with that?
Yeah, so the thing is probably once you get to like 7 properties is when you want to have a VA come in, do guest communication, onboarding. You want to have a bookkeeper as well to keep track of all the numbers as well, depending if you're doing like full service management and doing trust accounting or what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You want to do that. And then I like to have a revenue manager. So like I have a revenue manager that like manages the revenue for all my Airbnbs and that I own and invest too. So that helps out a lot, because I like doing the revenue manager too, because he'll pay for price labs and I pay him a certain fee as well per property. So like I'm not paying for price labs, and the main time that owners aren't happy is when they're not making money. So like it's one thing off my plate that I don't have to deal with, and like less headache as well.
Well, go into that just a little bit, Austin, if you can, because you're gonna have some listeners that say, "Man, all right, cool. No HMOs, or I know how to manage them now, right? And obviously you're going into operations now, and you're saying revenue manager. Like, what is a revenue manager? What's a revenue manager responsible for, and how does the revenue manager play a key role in the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So like a revenue manager is somebody that's going to do all your pricing for you. So like if you're using price labs, you're most likely adjusting it with like a minimum, a base, and then a maximum. And then potentially you have some other filters in place for seasonality. And like, I know like a decent amount of price labs, but like I found this guy who's just like, he's like a price labs whiz, like literally studied like YouTube on price labs, and they have like price labs live calls or whatever. And like, he pretty much went to Price Labs University. So pretty much he does all the pricing for every single property, like within Price Labs for me, so that I don't have to deal with it. And then it maintains a certain occupancy. And using him, like I'm always above the threshold for the markets that I manage in, because he knows, because he's probably in there 3 times a week for every single one. And it doesn't have to be a long time. He's just checking the data, make sure the filters are in the correct places.
All right, so I know revenue management is like a competitive advantage at this point. Kind of like in the old days, it was like set the rates really high way in advance, and hopefully the lead times will improve. But what does that cost? So like from a revenue management, is it like per listing? Is it a percentage base? Like how is that? Like if I'm going to try to source a revenue manager,
good question.
Is it per hour? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, so his pricing has gone up recently, but it's like per listing that you have. Like if you have multiple listings, it goes down. But if you just have one, it's about $300 per month for him to do it. I think it's around there, $250, $300 per per listing.
For
But if you have a
and
lot
that's
of
per
listings,
listing
like
or
as
for
you grow the
multiple?
management company.
Oh, sorry. So per
No,
listing
per
or just
listing. Per listing.
Okay, cool. But yeah,
Per
I
listing, yeah.
think like, and I think the listeners should definitely like pay attention to this. This is where a lot of people miss the mark. It's not necessarily the design, but it's the revenue management and pricing appropriately. That can really make or break a listing by having the right pricing in place. And even when like I'm looking at like other properties, like let's say I'm critiquing, right away you can tell if you're familiar with like the local market, the pricing is off, and that's like a big component why the property is empty. So I think that's like a super important factor, and I think that's great. Like Austin puts a lot of like resources into that piece to make his business thrive. Okay, so all right, so we got the pricing in place. So how, I guess, from a I'm just trying to see if there's like any other component of the business, like in general, like that you want to like emphasize, or that maybe we haven't discussed.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, it's just acquisitions is huge, right? Just under the first step is just like understanding your branding for your market, making sure your branding's crystal clear on what
Hmm.
type of properties you want to be able to target. Once we have that down, then we can figure out like, okay, what are our acquisition strategies going to be? Like, are we going to lean on organic, or are we going to lean on reaching out to people on Airbnb that are self-managing? That like honestly don't really know what they're doing and they're in pain, or are we going to target people that already have a property manager in place that are in pain as well because they're not being provided the boutique service that they need and their property isn't optimized?
Hmm.
And then from there, that's when we want to onboard everybody, right? Put those expectations in place on how the management is going to go with them coming underneath our management company. And after that, we want to make sure we have our operations down. And when you're first managing your 1 through 5, you can just do it all yourself. And then after you get to about 7, that's when you want to consider bringing on somebody to do your guest communication, your client onboarding. If you're doing a couple of properties a week or a couple of properties a month, that's when you want to have the operations person in place. And then we want to look into revenue management as well.
Awesome. So Austin, your properties appears to be in a local area, right? Or one area. Do you suggest that a new up and coming individual who want to sit here studying you, probably went to your management course, probably took your course and ready to rock and roll. Do you suggest them to look at one market or just have properties in every market? Like what's the benefits of having all your properties kind of in the same market versus having them scattered all through the country?
Yeah, 100%. So I think the biggest thing to like take into consideration, all right, so if you're, say you live in, I don't know, say you live in Florida but you manage a property in Houston, Texas. I think it's completely fine to like start a management company in Houston, Texas, if you already have some there. But if you're not in like Dallas, Texas, right, you have no properties there, it doesn't really make sense to like start a management company there. So in the beginning, just start in your backyard or start where you already have an Airbnb investment property or Airbnb arbitrage, whatever you currently have. Start there because you already have the team in place. You have the proof to be able to show somebody. So it's easier to sell them. And then like another good thing is like when you're starting in your backyard, like you have the ability to go drive over there and shake that owner's hand too. And that like crystallizes like that deal getting done. That helps out a lot sometimes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I like that. No, I think I think it's important to kind of have like that face to face, because nowadays it's like that's going away. And so I think it, like to your point, I think I think there's a lot more confidence when they can see a face versus just
Yeah,
like
for sure.
virtual,
yeah. Try to do it like if you're doing somewhere and you don't have like an investment or an arbitrage in another market, just do it within like an hour driving distance of yourself, so it's not too far.
So Austin, you sound very knowledgeable. I like the way you've kind of transitioned your business from learning the business, leaving the W-2, getting your time back, really like going all in with like your strengths. So somebody wants to somebody wants to kind of grow or create a co-host business, like what's the process of learning from you?
Yeah, you can just send me a message on Austin__Palacios on Instagram, and just mention that you came from Find Your Freedom podcast
Boom,
too,
boom, boom.
so I know where you came from.
Cool. No, that's awesome.
Perfect.
Obviously, helping others create financial independency is super important. I guess let's talk about that just a little bit, Austin, and let's stay in the neighborhood of your program and what you offer. So, I guess someone who wants to learn, to say, listen to this episode. Obviously, they look Austin up. You see that he's the real deal, and they want to they want to know. They want the independent financial independency as well. Like, what does your program looks like, and how does it help people?
Yeah, so I paid for a lot of coaching myself. Probably, I think this year alone, I probably paid, I don't know, somewhere over like $50,000 in coaching. So I'm a huge fan of coaching just because it expedites the process of what you're looking to learn. And so from what I learned with like all my coaching that I've gone through is like, to really get the results, like courses don't work at all, in my opinion. I don't think they work. You learn a little bit there. Weekly calls do work some as well. But really what really helps out is like if you can have that one-on-one support with somebody who's actually done what you're looking to do and you can bounce ideas off of. That's what like actually expedites and gets you the results the quickest. So my program is 5 months long. We have weekly calls on there, but you also have the ability to book time on my calendar if you're challenged or if you're struggling with anything as well. And then, I don't say this often, but like everybody that goes in the program gets access to my WhatsApp phone number too, so you can send me a message on there too, just so I'm able to help you too.
Awesome.
No, I like that. I think to your point, mentorship is important, but I think sometimes there's these such big programs with these gurus and you never really even interact with the person who's the expert. So I like the one-on-one. I think that's where you get the most bang for your buck. Yeah. So I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, man, it's huge. Like, yeah, I mean, like I've been in coaching programs where I've gotten results because I put in the work, but I mean, I never had a call with like the person who actually runs the program. It's just like a little frustrating, right? Yeah.
So,
Awesome.
All right, Austin. So we're kind of coming to the end here. So I know we've asked you this before, but what does Find Your Freedom mean to you?
Yeah, Find Your Freedom really like brings me back to the point where I was working my job in Chicago and I was realizing that everybody was doing the same thing as me. And to find your freedom is just like being in control of your time. Like, what do you actually want out of this life? Because everybody says this, but it's so true. Like the only limiting factor we have is our time, right? And I want to be able to respect my time as much as I possibly can. So finding your freedom is just respecting my time and then just living the life that I envisioned for myself and that I'm designing for myself every single day.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. So look, there's going to be a lot of people who will listen to this episode and they're going to be intrigued about, where you started, right? And where you're at today. So they're going to want to know more. They're going to want to know about the coaching program more. They're going to want to know about you more. They're going to want to know. So how can they get in contact with you, man?
Yeah, man, just send me a message on Instagram, Austin__Palacios, and happy to connect with you guys.
Awesome. So make sure you connect. So listen, we coming to the end of our show, and at the end, we all like to do the big boom session. So you've been here before, Austin. So hopefully, you pump those lungs up because you know it was coming. So with that being said, on the count of three, fellas, in a uniform manner, we all going to say boom and hold it as long as we can. All right. So listeners, this is your opportunity to turn down your speakers. All right. All right. So with that being said, y'all guys ready?
Yes, sir.
Let's do it.
All right, let me clear my throat. All right, cool. All right, 1, 2, 3. Boom! Awesome. Check this out. We just had another fantastic episode with our guy, Austin, and we needed to bring him back because we love to bring back guests and friends that grow because they can constantly keep learning things, but more importantly, teaching all of you some of the things of their journey and also helping you within your journey. So I strongly suggest that you follow Austin, 2, you get in contact with him and ask him about his program, because he's teaching things that he already done. All right. And he done it so he can teach you. So make sure you get in contact with him. And with that being said, make sure that you leave us an honest 5-star review. That's the way that we continue to bring Austin's on and other friends and guests to our platform, just ultimately to share value and give it to you so you can move forward. And make sure you share this episode with all your friends, your brothers, your sister, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles. Share it with all your coworkers, the ones that you like and the ones that you don't like. Until the next episode of Find Your Freedom, we talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.